In this video, I'll give you an overview of Dwarven Smithy. I'll go through the components, also go through a player's turn and the 4 phases on a player's turn. I'll show you how the last turn is triggered and also how to score the end of the game. The goal of the game is to get gold coins. The player with the most gold coins at the end of the game wins. Play revolves around the player card. There are 4 areas around a player card. We have the market, workshop, completed tools, and completed apprentices. There are card limits for each area. We have a card limit of 4 in our market, 7 in our workshop. We can have 2 completed tools and 2 completed apprentices. The game is played over a series of player turns. Each player's turn has 4 phases. Play continues clockwise around the table until the last turn is triggered. The last turn is triggered when the last resource is drawn from the mine deck, the last guild card is drawn from the guild deck, or a player ends their turn with 4 or more king's items completed in their market. The player that triggered the last turn, the game is over, and all other players receive 1 more turn. And at this time, you would do the end-game scoring, and there are 7 steps that clean up all the cards from the table and determine the winner. There are 12 resources in the mine deck. They are divided into 3 resource types: metals, gems, and runestones. For metals and gems, these cards have 2 states. We have a refined state and an unrefined state. So when you know the card is refined, when the refined icon is in the top left-hand corner of the card. So we have the refined icon, the buy value and the sell value, and we also have the unrefined icon, buy value and sell value. For the gems, we have 2 states. We have the refined icon, buy value and sell value, and also the unrefined icon, buy value and sell value. Runestones are always refined. They have the refined icon, the buy value, and the sell value. Next we have the core guild cards. Now there are 2 modes of play for Dwarven Smithy. We have a starter game, which has the starter icon on the middle right of the card. We also have the full game that has a gold hourglass symbol. This is the silver mining card for the starter game. For the core guild cards, we have no icon, and this is also a core guild card too. For the starter game, you have the starter cards plus the core guild cards, and for the full game, you have the full game cards plus the core, and you'll get rid of the starter game cards. Now, guild cards, there are 4 different types. I'm going to put the icon reference sheet up in the corner for you. So the 4 types are King's Item. You find this icon on the middle left of the card. So you have King's Item, Item, Tool, and Apprentice. Now each card has a slightly different function in the game. So apprentices change the rules of the game. Tools can either be sold for their completed value, or the text can be used to reduce the cost to craft other guild cards. Item cards are just sold for their completed value immediately, and King's items are actually crafted secretly face down, and they're moved into your market, and they're only revealed at the end of the game, and when they're revealed, that's when the player would receive the completed value. So each card, when it's completed, is slightly different. So for our apprentice, when we craft this card, let me show you the crafting component. You would place the refined resources in a stack, and then you would place the guild card on top of the card. That is the crafting. That's an action you would take on the 3rd phase of your turn. On the 2nd phase of your next turn, that's when this card is complete. And at that point, you would, for an apprentice, you would discard the resources and you would place the apprentice into the apprentice area. the card text would take immediate effect, and you notice there is no completed value because you're hiring an apprentice, you're not completing an item. So the card text takes immediate effect. So in this case, our market limit, instead of being 4, would now be 5. For tools, we would craft these cards the same way. Let's pretend we have the right resources. We would craft that on phase 3, and then on phase 2 of our next turn it would be completed, and we would place the resources and discard the resources, and at this point we would choose, do we want to sell the card, discard it like this, and we would receive the completed value in gold coins, or do we want to keep the card and place it in our completed tool area? And at this point, the card text would take immediate effect. We would have -1 to craft apprentices, items, and king's items. The text will always affect either some of the guild types, or they're going to affect a subtype of the card. So for items and king's items, you'll see an icon on the bottom right of the card. So there are weapon, armor, and shields. These are the subtype icons. King's items will always have a subtype, where items may have a subtype. So you may have an item card like a hammer that has no icon. For our hammer, which is an item card, so in this case we need an iron. So we have an iron here, and then we would place the card face up. So we craft apprentices, tools, and item cards all face up. On the second phase of our turn, this card is completed. We would place the used resource in the discard pile, and at this point this card is immediately sold for its completed value. In this case, we would receive 4 gold for the hammer. For king's items, you would need to have all of the correct resources. You would have those all down in your workshop. So on phase 3, you would start crafting this card face down. You wait until your next turn. Then on phase 2, all of the cards plus the guild card are now placed in your market. All of the cards are now considered just one card. So in this case, our market limit, we have a total of 4 plus 1 is 5. We have 4 cards here. However, this only counts as 1 against our card limit. In this part of the video, I'm going to go through a player's turn. I'll put the player turn card up in the corner. There are 3 general rules that are always in effect. If the card text contradicts the rule book in any way, then the card text takes precedence. Anytime that you have a card that is placed or played or moved or even purchased from another player and moved into your market, that card is tilted. When the card is tilted, resources cannot be sold to the warehouse and guild cards cannot be discarded out of the game. At the end of your turn, the card is turned. It gives all players an opportunity to purchase these cards for the buy value, and then on your next turn on phase 3, that is when you can actually sell resources to the warehouse, or you can actually discard guild cards out of the game. You can discard these cards only, or discard the guild card, or sell the resource card only if it's not tilted. And the last rule is the orientation of a card. The position matters. So if it's refined and you purchase this card, it will stay refined. In this case, if it was unrefined, then you would purchase it, it would stay unrefined. So those are the 3 general rules. We're set up for a starter game, and I wanted to go through. I started with 4 resources and 2 guild cards, and I wanted to go through a player's turn and go through about 4 player turns and show you how to craft all of the guild cards, and then also show you all the actions in the game. So phase 1 and phase 2, we refine all of our resource cards in our workshop, and we also complete all guild cards in our workshop. So phase 1 and phase 2 we get to skip because we don't have anything in our workshop. So I now move to phase 3. In phase 3 I can take any of these actions one at a time, I can repeat them, and I can take them in any order. So I'm going to play a card. So anytime you play a metal or a gem from your hand, they have to be played as unrefined, even if I play it to the market. So I played a card, play a card. I'm taking the actions, just repeating them. I played a card. I now want to move this card back, and then I will play another card. The actions you can take in your workshop are play a card, you can craft cards, and you can move a card from your your workshop into your market. In your market, there's 5 actions you can take of the 7. You can play a card, discard a guild card, move a card from your market into your workshop, and then if you're full, you can just swap cards. And then I can buy a card from another player's market. I can also buy a card from the warehouse. That card will go to my hand, and I can also sell a resource from my market into the warehouse. So that's what all those icons are. So those are all the actions I can take on my first turn. So I have 2 cards in my hand. I now move to phase 4. I draw 4 cards from either deck, and I can't go over my hand size limit of 6. So I can draw 4 cards. So I will draw 2 guild cards and 2 resources. It now goes to player 2. I don't have any market cards to turn. This player will put these cards down, and you can play a guild card down into your workshop. It just counts as one of your cards. So that's what that player does. These are all unrefined, and the rune is always refined, and they play down a guild card. They finish their turn. It goes around the table. Now it's back to me. Now start with phase 1. Phase 1, I refine my resources. I don't have any guild cards to complete, and I move to phase 3. So now I would like to start crafting some cards. So I have an apprentice that I would like to craft. It has gold and silver. So to craft this card, I would take my gold and my silver and stack these cards together. And at this point, I can still take the card off because I haven't started crafting it yet. But once I place this card on top, I now have locked all the cards into place. I can also count the cards by counting the resource cost, 1, 2, and then the card on top is 3, 4, 5. I can also craft the vice. I have the iron and any gem. So any gem symbol that you see is any one gem. So I'll take the ruby, and I will also craft my tool. And you notice that apprentices and tools are crafted face up. I can place one more card down for my total. So I will place the gold down. So these are all actions I've been taking on my turn. I crafted 2 cards and I played a card. I will also play this card here. I will play that card there, and that way I can draw 4 cards at the end of my turn. If I kept this card in my hand, I cannot draw 4 cards because I would go over my hand limit, so I would only be able to draw 3 cards. So I'm going to draw 4 cards. So now I get to draw 4 cards from either deck, my choice. So I will draw, let's draw all resources this time, because I need some, oh no, let's go 1, and then we'll go with another resource. So at this point, I am finished with my turn. I turn the card, and I pass to the player on my left. They start their turn. We're just going to simulate them placing some cards out. They finish their turn, and it continues around the table. It is now my turn. So at this point, I would start with phase 1. I would refine resources. Phase 2, I complete my guild cards. So my apprentice is placed in my apprentice area. The rules now take immediate effect. I can now have an extra card in my market, so I can now have 5 cards in my market. The card limit is increased to 5. I complete my tool, so I'm going to discard the resources. I have to choose, do I want to immediately discard the card and receive 24 gold for the completed value, or do I want to keep the text early in the game, -1 iron to craft any card? I could craft that card. So what I'll do is I'll keep this card. Now this is the action of buying a card from a market or a warehouse. So I'm going to purchase this card for 1 gold. I take the card and I place it into my workshop. I do not need an iron to craft it, so I don't need any resources. So this card is actually being crafted down in my workshop. So next, I will continue with phase 3 by playing some cards down. I do notice that I need that frost rune that I drew. I'm going to pull this card back. I am going to place this tool here so I can discard that the next turn. I don't want that card. So now I'm down to 3 cards. I will place down the thunder. So I have 2 cards in my hand. I can't craft these cards. So now I will finish my turn by drawing cards. So I will draw 3 resources and then 1 guild card, and I will turn my card. So player 2, they will decide they're going to sell on their 3rd phase. They will sell the moon gem and the silver to the warehouse for a total of 10 gold. And they won't do anything on their turn. It continues around to our turn. So at this point we've done a lot of different pieces. So let's see if everything can come together on this turn, and we can almost take every action that we could take other than selling a card to the warehouse. So you saw player 2 sell a card to the warehouse. It would be the same thing if we had a card. So let's see if we can take most of our actions. So on the first phase, we refine resources. On the second phase, we would complete the guild cards. So this was being crafted. So now it's complete, and I receive 4 gold. So I will give 1 gold back and receive 5. So now we are on phase 3. I will not be able to play a card, but you've seen that multiple times. So I can move a card and I can move a card back. So now I want to craft a card. So I have a king's item I can craft. So I take my gold, my frost, and my mithril. I stack all these cards together, and then I'm going to craft my king's item face down. There's 4 cards there. So king's items are always crafted face down. Next, I'm going to craft again. I can craft this gilded sword. I take my gold and my thunder rune. This card needs any rune, and it's any 1 rune, and any one of the runes will satisfy that requirement. So now I can craft again. I can craft another card, and this is the item card, and it's crafted face up. So now we've crafted we've completed our apprentice and our tool. Those were crafted face up. Now we're crafting an item card face up, and our king's item is crafted face down. We can't place any more cards into our workshop. We're now at our workshop limit of 7. So I will play a card here, and I've got 3 cards in my hand, which means I can only draw 3 cards, and I must draw 3 cards. So at this point I will draw, oh, I forgot, I haven't drawn yet, so I am still in phase 3. I'm not going to go to phase 4 yet. I can discard this card out of the game, because it's been there for one turn. So I don't want the forge. I could play cards out of my hand, but I wanted to show you my card limit is 6. Again, I can only draw 3 cards. I would tilt my card and pass it around the table. So the last turn here, I wanted to show you the completion of cards. So we go phase 1, refine, nothing to refine. Phase 2, we complete our guild cards. We can do them any order we choose if we have multiples. So we discard cards, and we're going to receive 46 gold for this item. Item cards are automatically discarded, and you're going to receive the 30, 40, 46 gold, and that's a lot of gold for me. And next I'm going to complete my king's item. So the king's item, all the resources and the king's item are placed up in your market. For terms of your market limit, all of these cards are now considered one card. We only keep the cards for competitive play, so when you have to prove that you actually crafted the card correctly, that all of the resource cards are there. Also, because tools can modify this limit, we always keep our tools to the end of the game to actually be able to verify that we crafted our king's items correctly. So all of these cards are one card. This is 2. I have a market limit of a total of 5, so I'm good. So I would finish up my turn, and I would play cards. You don't want to give the information that you have the lightning rune, so I would keep these cards in my hand. I now can maximize my draw of 4 cards. So now I would draw cards, and because I have more resources, I would get a guild card. Now play will continue around the table until the last turn is triggered. We have fast forwarded further in the game. In Dwarven Smithy, one player will trigger the last turn. Whoever triggers the last turn, the game is over for that player, and then all the other players are going to get one more turn. It's my turn, and I'm going to trigger the last turn, and I do that one of 3 ways. I can either end my turn with 4 or more king's items in my market. I could trigger it by the second way, by drawing the last mine card, and the third way is to draw the last guild card. In this case, we only have 1 card in each pile, so I could trigger it either way. So on my turn, I would refine my resources, and at this point I don't have any guild cards to complete, so now I'm in phase 3 and I'm going to play cards. I want to end the game, for me, with my most expensive resources in my market. The whole game we've been selling resources to the warehouse, but at the end of the game the king will buy your resources for the buy value. So I want to place my most expensive resources up into my market so that the king will buy those. So I run out of room a little bit here, so I'll just place it on top. So I will turn my cards, and then I would trigger the last turn. So I will do that by drawing the last resource card. So the game is over for me. Next, player 2 would go ahead and they would go through all their phases of their turn. They would refine their resources, complete their guild cards, and then they would also want to move their most expensive resources. And once the last turn is triggered, there's no need to do phase 4 and draw cards. It doesn't help you. And lastly, we would refine any resources, complete guild cards, and then they would also move their most expensive resources up into their market, and it looks like they have mithril. So at this point the game is over, and now we go to our in-game scoring. And I'll place the in-game scoring. It's on the back of the player turn card. So we would discard all cards that are in our hand and also in our workshop. So at this point we would just discard our cards. Take the last card. We can also discard cards that are in our warehouse. So this player would discard their hand and from the workshop, and their hand and their workshop. So now we would go to discard all guild cards in the player's market. And we're all experienced players, so we did not end the game with a guild card in our market. If we did, we would now be discarding all of those cards. Now we're going to sell all of the resources. So each player would sell the resources separately, and then you discard them. So here we have 36 for this player. And then I would receive 32 plus 8 is 40. I will actually give back 5 and I'll make it 50. And then this player, they would receive 20, 36. And you can see the game is cleaning itself up as we go through our in-game scoring. Next, we want to reveal all of our king's items. Now, if you're in competitive play, this is where you would check to make sure that all these cards were crafted correctly. So in the case of this player who used an anvil to create a weapon, they can create a weapon. They didn't need a gem, and it is correct. So in competitive play, you can do that. So at this point, now that we've revealed all the cards, now we're going to compare them. We're going to look at the weapon, armor, and shield, the subtype, and we're going to compare the completed value against all the cards. The king is going to give out 75 bonus gold. So he's going to do 25 gold for each subtype. So let's check armor. So we have, I created a 70, this player created 60, and this player has no armor. So I have the highest completed value. I would get a bonus of 25. Next we'd compare the shields. So we have a shield that's 55 and I have 70, so I get the bonus. And last we would check the weapons. So there's only one weapon that was created, so this player would get the bonus of 25. And that was phase 5, that was step 5 of the end game scoring. Oh, that 25 was mine. Okay, so now we move to step 6, and that is to receive gold coins for your king's items. So one play at a time, just go through, it's 55 and 50, and that is a total of 105. So 105. Player 2, I get 140. I can't make change, so that's 25, 30, 40. I would discard my cards. And discarding lets you know that you've been paid out. And then we have 60 for player 3. I have 50 and then 60. And then you go to step 7. You add up all your gold coins, and the player with the most gold wins the game.